Imagine sitting at a table longer than most people's houses, candles burning in the middle of the afternoon because the hall is too dark without them. The smell of roasting fat, of spices you've never encountered, of something sweet underneath it all. Dozens of dishes arriving in sequence, carried by servants who do not make eye contact, who move with a practiced invisibility that takes years to learn. You are a guest at the court of Queen Elizabeth I, or you think you are. What you are, more accurately, is a person from a different century, sitting in the wrong body, eating the wrong food, at the wrong pace, with no idea how to hold your knife or when to use your bread, or whether you are allowed to speak to the person seated above you. And that's before the food itself arrives. The mansion. The bread came first, small, round, dense, made from finely sifted wheat flour that took considerable effort to produce and was therefore itself a signal of status. At a royal table, you did not eat dark bread. Darker breads were for people who could not afford anything else. You tore it with your hands, used pieces to mop up liquid, to carry food to your mouth when other options weren't available. The bread was not a side dish. It was a tool. There are rules here that everyone else seems to understand automatically. The bread at least asks very little. You were just hungry. Potage. Before the meat came the potage, a thick mixture somewhere between a soup and a stew, eaten from a shared bowl with a spoon. The spoon you were expected to bring yourself. Many guests arrived with their own cutlery, folded into cloth, tucked into a pocket. If you had forgotten, you improvised. You watched what other people did and tried to follow without drawing attention. That becomes a recurring pattern very quickly. Watch, wait, copy. In a wealthy household, the potage might contain chicken ground, fine and blended until smooth, almonds ground into milk, herbs. What it could not be in 1570 was spiced with the things you would reach for now. No tomatoes, no potatoes, no peppers. You ate it. That was enough. Roasted capon with verjuice. The meat arrived in quantity. The sheer volume of food placed before a Tudor court was not about eating. It was about display. Dishes accumulated. Stuffed birds, roasted joints, pies with standing crusts, and many would not be finished. The abundance itself was the message. Look how much we have. Look how little we need to worry about waste. The capon was roasted on a spit, basted repeatedly with fat, served whole with its skin crackling and dark at the edges. The smell was extraordinary. This part at least felt familiar. What would not have felt familiar was the sauce. Verjuice, pressed from unripe grapes or crab apples, sharp and tart, closer to a mild vinegar than anything else. Something acidic, something sour, something that made you pause the first time it hit your tongue. You ate around it. You took more bread. A dish of larks. Nobody would have warned you about this one. Small birds, larks, starlings, sparrows, were not a curiosity at a Tudor table. They were ordinary. They arrived roasted whole, in groups of a dozen or more, and you were expected to pick them up with your fingers and eat everything that was edible. Meat sucked from bones the size of pine needles. For a moment you hesitate, not because the dish is strange by Tudor standards, because it is strange by yours. The flavor was intense, much stronger than chicken. Gamey in a way that modern poultry no longer is. In a world where hunting and fowling were privileges tied to land and status, a dish of small roasted birds was a reminder of who controlled those things. You ate one, maybe two. You put the bones down on the tablecloth. You reached for bread. Eel pie. By now you've stopped trying to predict what arrives next. Eel was common, the Thames still full of them in 1570. At a royal table, the eels arrived sliced and spiced with ginger and pepper, sealed inside a heavy pastry crust that was not always meant to be eaten. Sometimes it was a container, sometimes it was eaten too. The protocol was not fixed. The eel inside was soft, fatty, with an underlying flavor slightly muddy and mineral beneath the spices. Not unpleasant. Not what you expected. Almost nothing here tastes quite the way you think it will. Venison in black sauce. The venison meant something. In Tudor England, deer were closely protected by law. When venison appeared at Elizabeth's table, it was a reminder of the reach of royal authority. You begin to notice how often power appears in the food itself. The sauce, made from spiced wine, vinegar, and the blood or liver of the animal, had a genuine depth, bitter from the wine, sharp from the vinegar, warm from spices traveling through trade routes that most people at this table had never seen. This was not a meal you could eat while thinking about something else. Subtleties of sugar. Between courses, something arrived that was not quite food. A sculpture made from sugar and almond paste, shaped into animals, castles, heraldic symbols, sometimes gilded. You were expected to admire it before eating it, then break off pieces of marzipan shaped into a swan or a lion. Everyone understands it didn't need to exist, which is exactly why it exists. Sugar was not the background flavoring it would become. It was the point. Tudor physicians also considered it a health food, something that aided digestion, strengthened the body. They genuinely believed it. You ate the wing of a sugar swan, somehow after everything, almost too much. Hippocras, spiced wine, strained through cloth and warmed, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, sweetened with honey. Small ale was also available, familiar and nourishing. The hippocras was different, richer. It warmed the chest on the way down and left the mouth tasting of cloves for a long time afterward. By the third hour, the wine had accumulated quietly. You were not drunk. You were something else, warm and slightly distant. The noise of the hall felt farther away than it was. Someone nearby said something in an English you could follow mostly, but only if you concentrated. You nodded. You smiled. You hoped this was the right response. Gingerbread? Not baked. A paste, stale breadcrumbs ground fine, mixed with honey, treacle, and ginger, pressed into molds, decorated with gold leaf, assembled, then gilded, then served. Dense and chewy, sharp, more ginger than anything else, with something darker from the treacle underneath. By now you have stopped comparing every dish to its modern equivalent. You simply taste what is in front of you and accept that this century has its own logic. Butter and salt fish. On a fast day, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, plus the weeks of Lent, meat disappeared from the table entirely. This was not merely religious, it was law. The fishing industry needed support. The Navy needed sailors. Even the menu could become policy. Saltfish arrived instead. Cod, dried until hard as wood, soaked for days before cooking, then boiled and served with butter. Fibrous and dense, with a concentrated saltiness that sat in the back of the mouth and refused to leave. Around you, nobody seemed bothered. This was normal. The end of the meal. At some point, the dishes stopped coming. The servants cleared the tablecloth, pulled it directly off the table, gathering everything remaining into the cloth itself. And the meal was over. People moved. You stood. The air outside was cold in a way that came as a relief. The smell of roasting and candle smoke had gone unnoticed while you were inside. Outside, you noticed it immediately as it lifted away. You had eaten more than you normally ate in 2 days. You had sat through a ceremony that was also technically a meal. And the strangest part was how little any of it felt like eating. It felt like attendance, like performance, like being present at something that required your body but was not particularly interested in whether you were comfortable. Nobody asked if you enjoyed it. That wasn't the point. The kitchen would begin again in the early morning. The cooks did not eat what they cooked, not the good parts. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, people were eating supper. Bread and pottage, cheese and ale, whatever was left from yesterday and still good enough. The royal table was extraordinary in every sense of the word, which means most people never sat at it.